So what is democracy? Very, very big question, but it's actually surprisingly simple in some ways to answer. So what does it literally mean, and etymologically, as in where does that word come from? Well, it's come from ancient Greek. What it means is the rule of the people, or rule of people, literally, okay? So demos is the people, the demos we talk about, which is why in English we have words like demographic, which means the characteristics of people or certain groups of people, and then kratos, to rule, so democratus, democracy. So going a little bit deeper then, what is we can argue all day about what people means, and we'll talk a little bit about that, but you can also argue all day about what ruling means. So this comes from a philosopher called Raymond Geuss, but what he thinks is that there's three main ways you can talk about what ruling is. So first of all, it's deciding what we're going to talk about. Okay, what is a problem that we need to rule on? So do we need to rule about healthcare? Do we need to rule about education? So deciding what is on the agenda. And then the next one is actually making those decisions. So voting on specific laws, for instance. And then the last one is implementing those decisions. Okay, so this is something that is very, very, very rarely done democratically. So for instance, let's take an example of a law about policing. So let's say there's three elements of ruling in any sort of policy area about policing or law and order. First of all, there's deciding, okay, well, what are we going to consider a crime? Are we going to consider stealing a crime? And let's say the answer is yes. And then there's the making decisions. So that's, okay, well, if it's a crime, how bad a crime is it going to be? Are people going to get 5 years in prison, or are they going to get 10 years in prison? So there's a decision that needs to be made there. Then there's implementing. So who is going to enforce this? Who's going to catch someone who steals, and who's going to put them in prison? So those are three examples of big elements of ruling. And normally, as you can probably tell, normally the only one that is really democratic in democracies is the decisions. We elect people to decide what the law will be. We don't normally have input into what becomes an issue. That's normally done by things like politicians or the media. And likewise, we don't normally have people going around as the police force, or as teachers, for instance. You could say that's more democratic because anyone could become a teacher and therefore implement some policies, education policy, for instance.